Tonight on Wings, Takeoff with the Discovery Channel in the F-14 Tomcat. Today, the F-14 is the aircraft carrier's first line of defense. Celebrated in the movie Top Gun, Tomcats first proved their worth over the Gulf of Sidra in 1981, where Libyan Su-22s proved no match for the swift and agile Tomcats. Tonight, soar high with the F-14 Tomcat on Wings.
Hey guys, Spudknocker here, and you have no idea how long I've waited to make that intro to the sounds of the F-14 Wings documentary. This evening I wanted to give you guys my first impressions of Heatblur's DCS F-14B Tomcat. Growing up, my dad always used to say that the F-14A was what the F-14 was, what the F-14B was what the F-14 was always supposed to be, and the F-14D was what the Tomcat always could be. So here we are at Tonopah Air Base as a stand-in for NAS Fallon. If you watch my channel, you know that I'm definitely a fan of the NTTR. Something about the desert, California-Nevada desert, just does it for me. So today we're a group of Nugget F-14 pilots in the year 2000 doing workups for our upcoming deployment in the F-14. We're launching a mock force projection ashore strike in the US Navy's most potent strike fighter. So we'll go ahead and finish up the both simple yet lengthy startup procedure of the F-14. Most of your time in the startup procedure is going to be waiting for Mr. Jester. And as I've said in my previous video on the F-14 about HOTAS setup, the F-14 is really nothing, it's like nothing else you've flown in DCS so far. Everything about her is unique in some way. She will take quite a bit of getting used to for both new and veteran DCS world pilots alike. One of the things that right off the bat I noticed, but did not really think of, was how different and, well, primitive navigation in the F-14 is compared to the more computerized F-18. I tend to use a combination of both the kneeboard map as well as the actual system to the jet that Jester can control in the back seat to navigate around. This is one of my small complaints about the F-14, is I hope that Heatblur can go a little bit more in depth in the manual about how a mission maker is supposed to set up waypoints in the F-14. Maybe this is also on ED's side as well, but it seems a little bit clunky right now. And just simply not intuitive. It of course could be something on my end that I'm not doing correctly, but I tend to think that I'm pretty well versed in the mission editor and it still eludes me for the most part. So I set up a few F-14 target waypoints in this mission and hopefully they'll work for us. Takeoff is a pretty standard affair, but unfortunately this isn't my best one to date. Jester even yells at me. So we'll go ahead and do a control wipe. Make sure everything's good to go, and we will punch it.
Man. And the CO will bust our balls for that again.
I'm not quite sure what I did wrong. Maybe I was on the ground for too long, going too fast, and was endangering popping the tires. That's the only thing I can think of. So we'll go ahead and head out to our range complexes out to the east and fence in right away so our lone Sparrow has time to download its required data. Now we're flying one of the squadron's lantern jets, whereas our wingman is flying one of our squadron's TARPS jets. So unfortunately the lantern pod is attached to our aircraft, and so we have to fly with a single Sparrow, whereas our wingman can fly with 2 Sparrows since he is flying a TARPS jet. Now that the lantern pod, my mistake, is bolted onto the aircraft permanently throughout the cruise and cannot be removed while at sea, unless under extenuating circumstances. And now I'm going to be completely honest here and say that I was not a fan of the Viggen. Heatblur did a great job with her in terms of art and coding, but the jet and its systems were just kind of a big for me. But it's super exciting to see Heatblur's artistic and software development talent brought to a more mainstream and, quite frankly, fantastic and awesome airplane like the F-14.
Roger.
So we'll make sure that Jester has all of our air-to-ground weapons set and ready to go for us before we even get near the combat area. You can see that we're still safed up. We've still got master arm turned to the off position, so we're good in that respect. I'll bring in our wingman just a little bit. The Jester AI is very, very interesting and works incredibly well. The radial menu is very easy to use and very intuitive, especially when you're using Track IR or VR to select the different tiles. I highly, highly recommend Track IR or VR for any time you're flying in DCS world. I hope the AI can somehow be containerized and exported for use on other modules so the wheel doesn't have to be reinvented every time a dev wants to make a 2-seat aircraft. The F-15E, F-4E, A6, Cobra, and Hind all come to mind in that respect. So we'll go ahead and fence in and make sure we've got Jester set up to scan out nice and far, and we'll get ready for interceptors. So it looks like we've got some F-18s and maybe some F-5s out there, along with an SA-2 site spiking us.
Looks like there's dirt at 4 o'clock. We've got a Bandit, 085, 43 miles. Roger that.
So we'll go ahead and go after this F-18,
40 miles.
and our wingman will go ahead and go after the F-5. So it seems like there's only a single Bandit in each type, so one F-18 and one F-5. You can really tell that the flight model, the F-14, has been heavily researched and had a lot of love poured into it over the years, as it simulates all of the quirks and behaviors that I have heard and read about for years now. You're definitely going to want some rudder pedals for the F-14. Coordinated rudder turns are a must, especially at high units of AOA. Now, interestingly enough, Sparrows don't like me. This is only the second Fox 2 kill I've gotten in the F-14 after like 15 or more launches since I got access to the F-14 a few days ago. They sure don't like to hit anything. I was getting ready to gear up and get into a merge and go for a dogfight and go sidewinders or guns on him, but our Sparrow decided to make my day. And just looking around at the aircraft, the art, the mirrors, the external model, it just looks fantastic, especially under these early morning light conditions here on the NTTR. Everything looks just great.
Spike, 12 o'clock, set ahead. And, oh, nails, 2 o'clock. And, oh, dirt, 5 o'clock. Target, 10 miles. All right, switching to PSTT. That's F-18.
All right, Fox 2. There she goes. So I went ahead and switched over to Sidewinder, thinking that we are going to merge and have to fire a Fox
Get ready.
Fox 2 at him. I said Fox 2 earlier. I meant to say Fox 1.
Bandit is down. Spike.
So like I said, that totally surprised me. That we actually got a kill with a Fox 1. So I'm looking around making sure that, did I actually get him? Because that totally floored me that I got a kill with a Sparrow. Like I said, they just seem to not want to hit anything lately. So we'll go ahead and head towards our waypoint 3, I believe. This is our turnaround point in order to kind of maximize our range space. So we're going to fly back towards home plate, but also bomb a target on the way as to simulate a longer strike mission.
Wilco, switching to steer point 3.
So we'll head down to low level and show off some low level flying in the F-14. Now, while I did praise Jester earlier, Jester isn't always perfect. Sometimes he's eerily quiet and just disappears on you. And like I said, sometimes his voice files don't always match up in terms of pitch and tone. And unfortunately, this can be kind of jarring, as you may have heard a few minutes ago, when he gets an excited voice tone and then the sentence is finished with a more relaxed voice tone. That is kind of an immersion breaker. But the F-14 is of course releasing into early access, and Jester will be continued to be worked on by Heatblur throughout the lifespan of the F-14, which we can hope is a very, very long time. People are really going to love the F-14. All of these gripes that I have are all very minor gripes. Everything about the F-14 is very, very well done. There's just some little quality of life and, you know, immersion improvements that would be fantastic to have. Flying the F-14 is actually surprisingly easy, which surprised me after seeing just Jabber's videos early on in the release cycle of the F-14. Sorry, not release cycle, hype cycle of the F-14. He made it seem like I was going to be spinning the jet like crazy all the time, and I've actually never I've never accidentally gotten her into a spin. So flying the F-14 is rather easy. However, fighting in the F-14 is where she can get away from you. In high-stress situations, we have been spoiled and gotten used to being able to yank as hard as we want on a stick in the F-18, and being able to have the FCS counteract that and give us what we want without overstressing the aircraft. So if you have a SAM coming at you and you want to turn into it as hard as you can, you yank on the stick in the F-18 and it's no problem. But in the F-14, that would be a problem. I've already ripped the wings off the jet a couple times doing that. I even killed my instructor the other day, Mr. Straywolf, doing that. He laughed, but he was not very happy. As a result of this, dogfights require much more thought and foresight into your next moves and your maneuvers. And like I said, coordinated rudder turns and using rudder for roll at high AOA is incredibly important. I recommend, as you fly the F-14 around, to use your rudders for roll as much as you can to get used to that, so that it's second nature when you get into a more exciting situation where you want to yank around on the stick really hard, but you've got that muscle memory built up to be able to use the rudders and turn and roll the aircraft correctly without damaging or the aircraft or getting into a dangerous situation. So we're coming up at waypoint 3 over Rachel here, and we'll go ahead and start heading out towards our IP.
Roger. Switching to initial point.
And did I mention that she likes to go fast? Because the Tomcat lives for speed. She wants to go past 400 knots at almost any throttle setting and almost any weight. You're going to have to pull the throttle way back in order to make sure you stay with your Hornet buddies in your strike package. It's going to hurt to go so slow to stick with your Hornets, but that is important. So we'll bring it left towards my favorite, range 74 Bravo, and the mock Soviet airfield. My favorite thing to drop bombs on in the NTTR. And we're just making sure that we've got our bombs set up and good to go as we fly out towards our pop-up point. One thing I am really glad about is Heatblur decided to clean up the cockpit a little. It was far too worn out and dirty to be an active fleet aircraft, even in late 2006 timeframe, by the very first videos and artwork pictures and screenshots we got. I think this may have been due to their laser scanning and Heatblur Forge technique of scanning museum jets that have been sitting for quite a long time without the proper amount of care and cleanup that a active duty US Navy crew chief would give to his jet, even a jet that is on the verge of retirement. That is not to say that the cockpit shouldn't be beat up, because man, these F-14s, they were 30 plus years old when a lot of them were retired, but I think my point still stands. It was a little bit too much before.
Whoa, I got dirt at 1 o'clock.
And I'm not sure why this SA-2 didn't shoot at me. I was kind of hoping it would for the drama of the video. And the F-14 Tomcat is an absolute monster of a bomber, beyond just being a monster of a fighter. In my opinion, it's far more accurate of a bomber than the AV-8 or the F-18, and she can carry a heck of a lot more bombs as well, a lot faster and a lot farther.
At 2 o'clock.
When you run out of F-14s, you haven't just run out of fighters, you've also run out of bombers. The only thing that's going to be able to match the F-14 in terms of bombing in the near future in DCS, it would be the F-15E Strike Eagle. And we can see in my pull-up there that I pulled way too hard in the excitement of getting off the target and almost lost control of the aircraft. That is, like I said, something you would never worry about in the Hornet, because you could just yank on that stick as hard as you want. But in the Tomcat here, we obviously cannot do that anymore. And it looks like there might be a fire out there on the mock Soviet airfield. And maybe it looks like we shellacked some of those helicopters we were dropping on. There goes our wingy. So let's go ahead and head on back towards home plate.
Okay, switching to home base.
So here's a look at my first ever crosswind landing in the F-14. Didn't go so hot. In the landing pattern, she can be a bit of a lot to handle. She wants to go so fast all the time that it's really hard for her to slow down to landing speed. Really got to keep those speed brakes out for what feels like too long, and you also really need to make sure that you're using your DLC or direct lift control. I'm sure you guys all saw my 170 knot carrier trap. I'm sure I gave the boat an extra 5 knots on that one. Yeehaw, got a little bit of the wing rock. So coming into base leg here, I thought I had a good lineup, but then the slight crosswind hit me. I was not ready for it, and it was the first crosswind landing I've had in the F-14.
feet.
Jester's landing callouts can be turned off if you would like, but I find them to be very helpful.
200 feet. 100.
And a bit hard, but any landing you can walk away from, right? In conclusion, Heatblur's F-14 Tomcat is fantastic and completely different from everything we've seen in DCS thus far. Right now, my biggest complaint is the lack of documentation on how to set F-14 waypoints correctly in the mission editor. And if that's my biggest gripe, that's really saying something. She will be worth every penny you've spent on her. There are so many different aspects and facets of the F-14 that I haven't even scratched yet in the few days that I've had her. And I definitely look forward to learning as much as possible, bringing you guys a HOTAS setup guide for the Rio position, as well as showing off a split-screen video showing multi-crew in the very near future. So, if you like the video, please like and subscribe, and make sure you have fun in the F-14 Tomcat, fly safe, and happy hunting. Thanks a lot, guys.